topic, again, RTI and Public Funds is very much relevant to the work that we do. So my name is Anushan. I'm an analyst who works at Verité Research. So Verité Research is a think tank that does research mostly on economics, law, media, and politics. And so we have been extensively working on RTIs and have tons of experience in filing RTIs. And I think this is a good time to also share that. So I have a few slides, if I may share that, straightly jump into the presentation. So at Verité Research, we have various different platforms. And one of the platforms that I am currently in charge is the PublicFinance.lk. And this is a platform in which we provide public finance related information to the public, and in order to create awareness and create answerability about public finance issues, because at the end of the day, the public finance or the government's finances are public's money, the taxpayer money. So the taxpayer should have a right to know how this money is being spent and how it's being collected and how it's being managed overall. So PublicFinance.lk is just one website where we provide everything under one roof. Like we have articles and insights and infographics and data, acts, gazettes, to news in one place. And so for this particular platform, especially like RTI is very useful because this platform entirely relies on government information. So government has to provide information, and we usually communicate and make analysis based on that. So without government information, it's really difficult to even think of running this kind of a platform. So the government information, usually mainly we rely from government reports. But in addition to that, because sometimes they are very not sufficient and they are outdated, and there are various different issues again in those. But having an RTI, act like an RTI, provides us the opportunity to ask whatever public finance related information with the government, and that gives us a right, because previously it used to be completely on the discretion of the government agency. So we usually had to like write a letter or present, and the procedure used to be very difficult and very long, and we cannot do any projects reliant on that particular relying on the government officials, because it was completely at their discretion. But having this the RTI Act helps us and gives us a right to that information, where which we can get it at the right time frame where we can demand. So I'm just going to show you few examples of like research. There's plenty of research that we did, but few key research that was very much useful because of RTI, and if not for RTI, we couldn't have done that. So one is this budget promises. So this is the thing that we launched in 2017, and in this, what we usually see is that the government or the finance minister comes up in the national budget and gives a lot of speech and gives a lot of promises and proposals in the budget. But we really don't know at the end of the day whether these proposals that were mentioned by the finance minister, whether it has been completed or not. And what happened to that, we had no idea, because none of the government agency websites specifically mentioned this. They had aggregated data, but not specifically on each budget promises. So we came up with this initiative, and this is entirely mostly driven on RTI, where we file RTIs to different government agencies who is in charge of implementing these various different proposals. And we asked for their progress reports and action plans. And based on that, we come up with an assessment of the government's project. So this is one in 2017 that we found out that out of like, and we also had to focus only on large scale proposals which had more than 1 billion rupees. So we found out that this result, so we can see only 16% has been fulfilled, and 11% substantial, and we can also see like 16 and 19% are poor or broken in the sense they haven't even started to implement those proposals. So this is a very important research that we were able to do because of RTI. And going forward, this is something that we recently did. This is again through the public finance platform, that we found out there was a COVID-19 Itukama fund that was initiated by the president's office, and they asked for people to donate for funds to this particular fund. And they said that they will be spending this on various government projects related to COVID-19 relief. And we just wanted to know what happened to this fund, because lots of people had donated to that. They have donated 1,727 million by the end of January 2021. And we wanted to know what happened to that and whether anything was spent. So we filed an RTI to the Presidential Secretariat, and they provided us this information. And it said only like 6% of this fund has been utilized, because when COVID is really happening and government is finding difficult to find funds, where private individuals have donated to this fund and not using this fund, it became a big question. And this was widely shared in the media and got a lot of traction. And lots of people started criticizing the government for the lack of utilization of this fund. And what happened after a few days, that presidential office itself, Presidential Secretariat, they issued a press release saying that they gave an updated figure saying that as of June or May, that they have spent around 8%, and they also have some liabilities to pay. So they will be spending around 26% of this fund. So that was a initiative. It came out of the public outcry, and it came because of the RTI. And so we will also just not leave at that point, because only 26% of the government spending is expected to be spent by the government at that point. But we want to make sure that this fund, they are spending out of this. So we will continuously be filing RTIs, and I think we have filed one recently, and we're waiting for the response. And we will be continually following up with these funds. So having RTI really makes us do these kinds of things. If not, it will be very difficult. And so these are just two key things, but we have done several RTIs. I think from the initiation of the RTI Act, Verité Research as an organization itself has filed around 300 to 400 RTIs. So that's quite a lot of RTIs, and we have had multiple experiences with different government agencies. And we were able to expose or put out very valuable research out of this. Like, for example, we had put out a research on bilateral lending agreements between agencies, and what are the conditions that these bilateral lending agencies put out. Like, for example, certain countries or certain agencies put out that they should get the contract from a person or a company that they select. And there are such conditions, and we again published a report on this, which puts out the specific conditions and the specific nations which test that. And in addition to that, various other details like disaggregated tax data, for example, like import taxes, taxes on imports broken down by HS codes. That's the lowest level of you can break down and expend tax revenue, because currently it's given in aggregated way. So we got those kinds of information from customs and various road contracts. So we had to file RTIs to get huge amounts of road contracts and external debt the government owe to the different countries, and that is also very useful to know the current situation of the country and the crisis that we are in. So we have all those databases that was provided by the government, and there were even vehicle databases which we filed RTI and we obtained. So it has been very useful, these RTI. And I think even what experience we felt is that even while filing these RTIs, most of these government information officers, they are very enthusiastic about giving these information. So there have been certain instances where they had specifically pointed out this is the good information, and they have highlighted the key informations that we should look for, the things that we should look, and they've advised us accordingly. And also we have had instances where like some government agencies even went to the level of not just providing the data, but having taking us to a conference room and like making us sit there and explain everything, and explain why their projects, what are they doing in their projects, and why it's being delayed, or what's being done, and what are the problems they're facing. So they went into some extra effort to give information. So even some of the government or information officers are really enthusiastic about giving this data, because previously they couldn't give this. To get this data, they have to get very high level permissions to give, but now they have the right to give these informations for us. So those are very positive developments that we saw because of this RTI Act. But also to note that there are some barriers still that exist, and this is a relatively new act, and that relatively came new. And initially there were more barriers, like even the government officials didn't know really about RTI. So sometimes we had to take up the RTI Act and explain to some of the lower level officers about this and get into that particular place where we can get information and all. But and there are certain barriers again when it comes to provision of the information. As I showed you previously, that this particular analysis also we have here like in the left corner, that there's 11% of information is undisclosed. So although we filed RTI for all of these things, I mean most of them gave in 2017, but there's still some people, some organizations which couldn't provide us this information. And to also note that these are informations again about government projects. So government projects are again a proactive information that has to be released proactively according to the RTI regulations. But we had to file RTIs to get these. Meant that it was more effort and time for us as well. And to know that there's only like and 11% of the people didn't comply with that. And going comply in the sense like they didn't provide the information in time. So we also have a time frame where like if it's 2017 data, we had to analyze between like first 6 months of 2018, and we had to put out this research. So to do this research in a time frame, everyone needs to actually work according to the time frame, but some of these did not provide, and some didn't even provide at all, and there was no response at all. But what we can see is this, like from 2017 compared to like this is 2018 again, the same analysis what we did, is that again the undisclosed proportion increased over time. So what we see here is that lots of people, when you can see here that they have identified like 19% has been broken or poor, but here the percentage of that has reduced. So lots of people are not sometimes willing to provide this information if they felt that it is negatively affecting them. So like pointing out that this agency did not really comply or did not implement this particular proposal. So they rather consider being not giving the information rather than giving the information that they have, saying that they have not done it. So those kinds of problems still arise, and over time this has been going up as well, the amount of undisclosed information. And even in 2020, this is 2019, again 41% is undisclosed, and in 2020 also this has been quite high. It has gone to about 60% of the information has not been disclosed. And that could be because one reason COVID, but there are also other reasons that we see that they are very much reluctant to provide information now and than previously. And there's a very again a very key RTI that we filed was this RTI that against the central bank or against the EPF department. So we wanted to again know about information about the bond market transactions of the EPF and how they made the investment, what is the price they made, and whether it's favorable or not. So we just wanted transaction details for us to compare and see whether EPF is in a bad situation or not. And what happened is we initially filed this RTI in May 2017. And what we can see is that this information we still have not received. It's almost four years, more than 4 years, but we still have not received this information. It has been delayed. So for example, like this information was rejected, and then we had to file an RTI to the commission, an appeal to the RTI Commission in November 2017. And we had commission hearings going on, and we had to present our case, and the central bank presented its case, and the hearings went on for 1 year. And finally, the commission agreed with us and said that the information has to be provided and gave them an order. But still, the central bank still decided that they do not want to give this information, and they went ahead and filed an appeal to the courts. And now since then, like from December 2018, it has been delaying. So still, I think we even filed a statement of objection against their petition. And since June 2019, there has been not even a single hearing happen on that. Like there has been some mentioning in the courts to decide or postpone the dates, but no proper hearing on this has yet happened. So this could be because of various different delays in the legal system, and this makes us even the data that we wanted. It was data till 2000, end of 2016 data, but now it has really passed a lot. The time has passed a lot. So it even comes to a point where it could be, this data could even become obsolete, or we could not even find the thing that we wanted to find because of these delays. And we still don't know when we will be able to get these delays. So having this appeal in the court really makes it difficult for us to get this information. In addition to that, just few other small problems that we faced when filing RTI is that we again have, as I mentioned earlier, that poor proactive disclosure of information. So even for the budget promises, things that we had to file RTI for, we got like, so on average for each year, we file around 40 to 45 RTIs. And in first year, we got like 10 of them were mentioned in the websites. But going on, like from 2019, 2020, we couldn't really find more proactive, because even proactive disclosure nature of the agencies has been reducing, and significantly in 2020, because they had to change the ministry websites to, even though the reports are available, it's really not available online. And this proactive nature is, I mean, having this proactive disclosure of information will really reduce a lot of our work, because we are also spending so much time in coordination, and if we have to file so much RTI to obtain this piece of information, it's very much making our lives also difficult. And again, there are also delays in provisioning of this information. So on average, like out of the RTIs that we have filed, we find that around only 45% of these agencies really report these RTIs on time. They follow their on time. So that is like first 14 days to give the decision letter and another 14 days to provide the information. So sometimes some people take like 2-3 weeks extra. So we even account for that. And we had to constantly follow up and remind and say them that we will be appealing and all, and to provide this information. So there's a lot of delay in this time frame, and there's really nothing that we also can do about this delay. So if there is some mechanism to solve that delay, it'll be very useful. And also another key thing that we faced recently, like in this year, is that information which was provided to us previously in our RTIs has been now getting rejected. So for example, there are two agencies which mainly we face this problem. One is from customs. So through customs, we used to ask cigarette data on a monthly breakdown. So cigarette tax data with a monthly breakdown. But recently, when we filed this RTI, earlier we used to get that information, but when we filed recently, they outright rejected that information, or they didn't even reject. They was like, we don't have this data. You don't have to file RTIs with us. You have to go to different department, and various sort of reasons, invalid reasons to say that they cannot provide this information. And there's also another case in which we wanted to file data of disaggregated tax data with the Inland Revenue Department. So this is one of that. So we wanted to ask information on tax exemptions and basis of exemptions and foregone revenue by the government. So details on tax exemptions, and that was the first RTI that we filed. And the second RTI, we asked for sectoral breakdown of tax revenues. So different sectors, what are the tax revenues being collected? But what we got in response from the IRD was that they outright rejected these RTIs that we filed. And the reasons they gave for this was also really not valid. So the reasons that they gave was, one is that this information was available online, and then this information request was of personal nature and not in public interest, and then this will also cause serious prejudice to the national economy, which all of these I think is not valid, because we even filed an appeal saying why these things are not valid, because again, we couldn't find these informations online, or these informations are tax data, and it does not have anything. We didn't ask for any relation to a person. And again, these are past tax data and nothing about the future. So they should be providing this, and we don't think it really prejudice the national economy. And what is more interesting about this is that these data, the breakdown of the data. So we ask for the breakdown of the tax revenues on sectoral data. This is one of the data that they previously mentioned in their annual reports. So 2018 annual report had this breakdown. But we asked for lots of other taxes as well, and for this tax for VAT also. But this is the data that they used to be publishing in their annual report, uh, and we filing RTI, and if we still couldn't get this, it's a serious problem. And I think we also again filed appeals on this to the RTI Commission on this. But again, to note that we don't go ahead and file appeals to each and every RTI that we file, because there's a lot of RTIs that we file, only the ones which we think are really worth the effort to go through the whole RTI Commission hearings, because that's also sometimes time consuming and a lot of effort is required. So there are some instances in which we haven't even gone to the RTI Commission and we have just accepted their rejection. Yeah, so I think I can end my presentation with that point. And